they're back. Guess someone told you what I'm going to talk about next? They're so vain. Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Folks, it's time to review the final issues from the Ewoks cartoons from Marvel comic books based off the Ewoks cartoon. And we're going to start off with issue 11. These are all written by David Manek, and this one's called The Incredible Shrinking Princess, where Kanisha is shrinking and Tebow and Wicked need to rush to try to save her because she's been taken captive by the Fleabogs, another microscopic, creature that inhabits Endor. I mean, do you have any Fleabogs on you now? Need to get you guys bathed. Issue number 12 is called The Thorn Monster, and in this one, Morag wreaks havoc on the Endor village and resurrects a thorn monster in the process. Now, one of the things I like about this issue is Logray is taking time off during all of this. Like, he took a little mini vacation to a spa. It's like a hot pool or something. And the funniest thing is he jumps into the pool and actually says, "Whoopee!" For some reason, when I read that, I loved it. I was like, hey, Logray, taking some time. Say whoopee. Say whoopee. See Ewoks say whoopee. Yay, I'm having fun, So Logray has a little fun, and while he's doing that, Ewoks are dying. Think about it. Issue number 13 is called The Black Cavern. When Dulocs interrupt Wicked's test of bravery, he must go on a quest to the Black Cavern to retrieve the Sun Crystal. And in issue 14, King for a Day, Tebow saves the village from Captain Zornak and his henchmen. Tebow is put in charge of the village and then kicked out because they think he's no good, but then at the very end comes back to save the village. Yay for Tebow. And then that was it. The series just ended. There wasn't really a proper ending. That Tebow adventure is just like a one-off. So I'm guessing it went longer than Droids. Droids only went 8 issues, where Ewoks went 14 issues. Now, Ewoks was probably more popular with kids because the series got a second season. And people like me, I loved the Ewoks cartoon. So if I would have known there was a comic book, heck yes, I would have bought it. But for some reason, it just ended. This is back in the days when the actual dark times were happening for Star Wars, where the faucet was getting turned off and there was no more EU content coming out. The cartoon was wrapping up. Marvel had said goodbye to the rights, and I guess it was time to end Ewoks, the Marvel comic book, as well. It would have been nice to see a treatment very similar to what you got from Droids. Maybe give us 2 episodes where we see Return of the Jedi from the Ewoks perspective, the young Ewoks perspective. That would have been neat. One thing to mention about this comic book series is Latara from the cartoon series. She is not in many of these, if at all. And I was kind of confused by that because she is a big part of the cartoon, and why they didn't want to put her in the comic books that much is questionable. I don't know why. Why not? She's a regular character on the cartoon series. But it usually focuses around Tebow, Kanisha, Wicked, or some mix of those 3. Usually always Wicked. Should you read these? Well, folks, if you grew up on the cartoon as I did, I think you would. I remember when the Dark Horse Omnibus came out for the Droids and Ewoks cartoons. It is my second favorite omnibus that Dark Horse ever came out with, because I was pleased as punch to see that they made an omnibus collecting all the Droids and Ewoks comic books. I was like, yes! Because I knew they were out there, but I didn't want to track them down. Just like the old Marvel comic books, I have them all in trade because I did not want to track down all 107 issues. And the same thing with the Droid and Ewok comic books. It's hard to find all those single individual issues, or it was at the time. I haven't looked now. But I didn't want to spend all that money or spend all that time tracking it down. So when Dark Horse said they were coming out with an omnibus, I was like, sign me up. I pre-ordered it. when it came in from Amazon, I remember, like I said, I remember where I was when I read all of these books here. All these books that you see back here, I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing at the time. I know that's a little weird, but it is true. So for instance, when I was reading the Droids and Ewoks comic books, I was living in this house. It came in. I was super excited. And I remember I told my wife, I'm just going to walk the neighborhood. Kind of wanted to get some exercise in too. And I would walk for like an hour at a time and just read. And that whole week, I just kept walking the neighborhood and reading the book and just loving it. Now, the Droids comic books, like I said, I didn't get as much because I wasn't a big, I didn't grow up watching the cartoon. But when reading the Ewoks comic books, gosh, I would have loved those as a kid. I would have eaten that up because it just reminds me of the old 80s children's comic books. If you remember the Kool-Aid Man comic books, I grew up reading those too. And it was always fun to read those. And those are they have very similar stories from what the Ewoks were. And this is all, I want to say circa 86 or whatnot when these came out. And that was just the heyday for me, loving me some Star Wars. So for me, the Ewoks comic books are well worth it. If you grew up watching the show and you loved it, or you just love Ewoks like maybe I do, then this comic book series is definitely for you. All right, folks, that is all the time I have for now. I'll see you next time with another video.